But now on the Durbervilles Spoken Root Show on BBC Radio Leeds, it's time to hook up with our live guest tonight, who's joining us from our BBC premises in Newcastle.
Oh, Newcastle.
We do get about, don't we? Yes, I suppose, if you want to be absolutely correct. Rod Clements is with us. Rod, very good evening. Welcome to the Durbervilles Spoken Root Show.
Hello there, thank you very much.
Very nice to have you on the programme. Founder member of Lindisfarne, founder member of Jack the Lad, and many, many other activities to your name in the way of playing alongside people that we know and love.
Founder member of many things. Yes,
you could say so, yes. Not only that, but also a columnist as well.
Oh!
Yes, R2 magazine. You do a regular thing in that, don't you?
I do, yes, graced with the name of Nicely Out of Tune, which may ring a few bells with some people.
Oh, yes.
Certainly does indeed, yes. Yes, so it's great to have you on the programme, and you are doing some solo dates, so do you have people with you when you do these dates at the moment, Rod?
Mostly I'm playing either solo or with my pal Ian Thompson on double bass.
Ah, right.
And the next time I'm down your way, I'll have Ian with me.
Well, that'll be for the Square Chapel in Halifax then.
It certainly is.
Happening at the end of the month, in fact,
the
30th.
very, very end of the month, November the 30th, the Square Chapel. I've been there before on my own. I was there beginning of last year, beginning of 2012, and it was great. Really liked the place.
It's a lovely little venue.
Yes,
it is lovely. Yeah.
Did you discover what shape it was while you were there, Rod?
I did.
Oh, good.
Funnily enough, yes. Quite taken aback by that, I was.
So, we, as we said earlier, last week we had Roger Chapman on the show, and he was happily singing.
I don't think you did. I think it was Mr. Michael Chapman.
Sorry, Michael Chapman. Was I thinking of family for a minute there?
You were,
do apologise. Yes, Michael. Yes, we did. And he was singing your praises. Of course, you've collaborated with him over the years as well. So it's a nice little connection between one show and another.
It is. Yeah. Good.
So, how did things begin for you, really? I mean, the Lindisfarne connection is obviously well known, and that started with the release of Nicely Out of Tune in 1970. How did you come to start in the business in the first place, then?
Well, in the very first place, I was a kid in my early teens, and I picked up on guitar music, twanging guitars, the Shadows, Duane Eddy,
right.
The Ventures, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so it was the electric thing that was going.
It was the electric thing at first, and I was only interested in twanging guitars. I wasn't interested in singing at all. I thought singing was just for sissies. I thought singing was something you had to put up with until you got to the guitar solo. And it wasn't until I heard people like Howling Wolf that I heard the error of my ways. Right.
But of course, I mean, that wasn't available to many people in those days, and there was a lot of instrumental guitar music about, wasn't there?
There was, yeah, and I still love it. I still love Hank and all that stuff, and Duane, and there's still elements of that in what I do, I think. But it wasn't until the Beatles and then the Stones, and then discovering the blues through the Stones, that I kind of discovered roots music, Dylan, of course. And found myself in the company of a few like-minded souls about the same age, and you do the usual thing. You form a band, and off you go.
The great thing about Lindisfarne was that although clearly the blues and all the elements you've just talked about, Rod Clements, were there, they also managed to have that rootsy flavour and also have an identity that came from the part of the world that you did.
It did, yes. I think that was partly because besides being an electric blues band, which is what we kind of morphed into, we found we weren't getting too many gigs like that, so we started going to the folk clubs. Folk clubs are always a good source of music for getting to play if you can't play anywhere else. You can usually get a floor spot or something. We kind of learned a repertoire of Woody Guthrie and Leadbelly type numbers, and when we were at the folk clubs, we found that we were listening to a lot of not so much traditional songs yet, but Irish songs, chorusy type songs, and the singer-songwriter type material of the late 60s and early 70s. And that's how we came into contact with Alan Hull.
Oh, right. So he was in that scene doing his thing when you were having a look at it, basically.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, the first time I met Alan Hull was when I was at his folk club and I won the raffle. And the prize was a Bert Jansch album, which Alan gave to me.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a few connections in one story there.
Isn't there just? Yes, because of course you went on to work with Bert in the 70s, and you produced some of his albums as well.
I did, yeah.
Great, and that's how it all began. Was Alan Hull, did he see himself as the person who was going to be the chief songwriter in Lindisfarne? Because
well, he automatically was. The band existed as an entity already. We were called Brethren at the time. We were kind of a self-sufficient entity. We're just really feeling our way as far as songwriters were concerned. But Alan was already a solo entity, a fully fledged solo entity with a vast catalogue of hundreds of songs.
Right.
And somebody had the idea. Well, we had the idea ourselves, but it was the two elements were put together. We sort of kind of saw it as a Dylan and the Band type arrangement in the first place, but it meant that we acquired a new frontman and a load of great songs.
Right, yes, of course. But let's not forget that one of the biggest hits that Lindisfarne had was one of your self-penned numbers, Meet Me on the Corner, of course.
It was indeed, yes, yeah.
There we go. Well, Rod Clements, you do have a guitar in hand over there. So would you like to entertain us with something? And is this likely to be something from your latest work, or what have you got for us?
It's something from the forthcoming album, which is actually a kind of a retrospective project. What I'm doing, basically just me and Ian, the bass player, have gone into the studio and recorded all the songs which I wrote for Lindisfarne and Jack the Lad in the early days, but doing my own version rather than the
accepted one,
yeah, rather than the version that everybody knows, which is mostly not sung by me on the original records. It's either Ray Jackson or Billy Mitchell or somebody singing it, so it's done in my own voice this time.
Very good.
The one I'll do for you now, this is actually a song from the Fog on the Tyne album. It's one of my first songs, and it's actually called Train in G Major.
Oh yes.
But before the musicologist jump down my throat, I know it's in the key of E now. That's just because it's easier to sing.
Right.
But
we'll let you off that.
Thanks. It goes like this. I know you're traveling, but I don't know where. I leave here with you, but I just can't pay my fare. Take me to some better place to be. Now tell me, baby, don't you want a man like me? I came in the summer with the bright lights on my mind. I tried to make it, but I soon got left behind. But if you deal me one good hand to play, I swear I'll keep your secret if your man comes back someday. Hey now, baby, won't you take me on your train? We'll leave tomorrow and we won't come back again. But if the sun don't shine on our back door, you can leave me when you want to if you just let me know what for.
Oh, yes.
Rod Clements playing live on the Durbervilles Spoken Root Show. Train in E major, G minor, G major, whatever you want. Very nice indeed, though, Rod.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that. We'll go on with our little feature that we do at this time of day, if you don't mind, for a minute, and then we'll come back to you for a couple more, if you don't mind, in the second half of the programme. Would that be all right, Rod?
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely. Well, we're looking forward to that already, actually, because that was great stuff. Yeah. Rod Clements, our special guest tonight. But we're moving swiftly on because we have a rather lengthy track in this week's
David's Dusty
part of their tour. Great. Well, it's the Durbervilles Spoken Root Show. Of course, Dinah Luke will be along at 9 o'clock. So before we do that, we must rejoin our guest on the programme tonight, Rod Clements. Hi, Rod.
Hello there.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
And he'll be sitting there very patiently. It'd be nice to have another number from you straight off if you'd like to throw one at us.
Absolutely. I'll throw you a one called Old Blue Goose.
Very nice indeed.
Here we go. Down on the corner, the old man said, "Son, the old blue goose is dead." She was up on the side of the grocery store, but the old blue goose ain't there no more. Back in the days when the railroad ran, the bootleg liquor and the big-time bands would knock 'em down, turn 'em loose and they'd all go rocking down Old Blue Goose. There was jig joint whiskey and muscat wine, Jessie on the corner rustling dimes. And Ed and Oscar, the Wampus Cats, Black Ace playing for a nickel in the hat. Now it ain't no use you telling me this stuff ain't nothing but history. Cause the old blue goose is on her way. She stopped right by my house today. Word came down from a friend of mine, we got the old blue goose online, and the World Wide Web is gonna spread the news about Jessie and Oscar and Shreveport Blues. Now that she got the wings to fly, that old blue goose will never die. You can play it fast, you can play it loose, or you can play a song about an old blue goose.
Old Blue Goose, performed live on the programme, the Durbervilles Spoken Root Show, here on BBC Radio Leeds. Rod Clements is our guest tonight. Lovely stuff, Rod. Thanks very much for that.
Thank you.
Yes. Do you know I think it was about 2003, we actually, us Durbervilles at this end, we actually supported you in Bradford, a big outside gig. It was a Linda's, you were...
was it a BBC Music Live affair or something
Music
like
Live
that?
or something.
In the square.
The Centenary Square.
Yeah, I remember. And
we were on before you, I think.
Were you?
Yeah.
Right. I can vaguely remember the day. I can remember playing there.
Yeah.
And then Jules Holland's Later was on.
That's right.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
Down on one of the Penningtons. I think that's the first time that Jules Hollands ever did anything outside of TV Centre in those days.
I think it was.
Yeah.
A huge place, like a big old ballroom place.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
Penningtons it was called, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a while ago, but it was quite a good day.
Certainly was. But I had many happy times in Bradford and around that neck of the woods, yeah.
So you might know some of the curry joints around there then from your touring days.
It seems that Fair Park Convention always come to Bradford for the curries as well.
It must. I don't know. It must be something in the culture, I think.
Indeed, so yes. We were talking earlier, Rod Clements, about your writing stuff in the R2 magazine. You have a regular column each time the magazine comes out.
I do. Yes, I kind of have a roving brief to write 600 words on. In every issue on absolutely anything I like.
That's a great brief, isn't it, really?
It is, yeah. You can't complain at that, no.
I remember one you wrote a couple of 3 issues ago where you were saying, you were commenting on the state of some of the folk clubs as they are, and I think you held a sort of controversial view that perhaps we should just let them get on with it, and as the folk clubs get older, then they get older, and that's that. But you were doing some observations about sort of young clientele coming and not maybe being welcome.
I might have known that this would come back to haunt me. It's just something I've noticed playing in folk clubs, that there's not an awful lot of young people in the audience, and I wish there were.
Yes, of course.
I really want there to be, but I don't know what to do about it. I don't know how it can be achieved, other than I know some clubs do try very hard to encourage younger players and younger audiences in. They unfortunately, young artists don't necessarily equate with young audiences. They don't necessarily bring younger audience.
No, that's the thing. Having said that, though, I mean, there is no shortage of young talent in the folk world, is there?
Absolutely, absolutely not. There's loads of it. There's, particularly young bands, young instrumental players. And they're great. There's all kinds of opportunities for young players to develop really well and fast now, and they're great performers.
Yes, we've seen some young people.
Oh yes, very much so.
Very impressive.
We've had a few in the show.
We've had a few in the show, Been on studio from time to time, which is good. I like to do that. I'm just looking at some of the people that you've played as a session player and stuff with recently. Thea Gilmore springs to mind as somebody that you've worked with.
Oh yes,
well,
Thea and I have got quite a long-standing connection through Nigel, her husband, Nigel Stonia.
Yeah.
Because he and I have been songwriting partners, and then through that connection, I played as a session man on a couple of Thea's albums, done a couple of tours with her, and she's very kindly been and sung on my solo albums. I've had her as a guest vocalist on a few tracks.
Excellent. Now, talking of your albums, when is this new CD that you've been talking about due out then, Rod Clements?
We're looking at spring. I think it's going to be March or April time. It's 99% recorded, but it's still got to be mixed. The artwork and all that kind of stuff to be done, and I want to do a proper job on getting the release right and promoting it right. So I think we're going to give ourselves until the spring to get it all together, because it's turning into quite a big project. It's going to be a double CD. It's got the working title at the moment of Rendezvous Cafe, and it's about 25 tracks.
Wow.
Oh, quite an undertaking.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of mixing in there then, Rod, isn't there?
There is, yeah. Luckily, there's not an awful lot on it. With, as I said earlier, it's mostly just me and guitar and Ian on double bass and a few overdubs. We haven't been too restrictive about the brief, but just a bit of mandolin here, a bit of slide there, that kind of thing.
Smashing stuff. Well, Rod Clements, it's a delight to have you on the programme. It would be churlish not to have another number from you while you're here, if you would, please.
Oh, I'd be delighted. And it would be churlish of me, I think, not to give you this one.
Right.
See if you recognise it.
I'm sure we will.
Mr. Dream Seller, where have you been? Tell me, have you dreams I can see? came along just to bring you this song. Can you spare one dream for me? You won't have met me, and you'll soon forget, so don't mind me tugging at your sleeve. I'm asking you if I can fix a rendezvous, where your dreams are all I believe. Meet me on the corner when the lights are coming on, and I'll be there, I promise I'll be there. Down the empty streets we'll disappear into the dawn, if you have dreams enough to share. Lay down your bundles of rags and reminders, and spread your wares on the ground. I've got time if you'll deal in rhyme, I'm just hanging round. Meet me on the corner when the lights are coming on, and I'll be there, I promise I'll be there. Down the empty streets we'll disappear into the dawn, if you have dreams enough to share. Hey, Mr. Dream Seller, where have you been? Tell me, have you dreams I can see? I came along just to bring you this song. Can you spare one dream for me?
Oh, fantastic.
We know that one, Rod Clements. Yes. It's not often on the Durbervilles Spoken Word Show, actually, we get anybody doing their hit records. Meet Me on the Corner, of course. That presumably is on the new disc, is it, that you're working on the moment?
It certainly is.
Yes, I think it would have to be, really, yes. And do you ever get to see any of the surviving members of Lindisfarne? Are you still in touch with each other and things?
Well, yes and no. Some of them. I was invited to be special guest with Billy and Ray on their Newcastle City Hall show during the summer. They do a thing called the Lindisfarne Story,
right,
where the two of them basically sit on stools on the stage and tell the whole story of the band,
right,
with the kind of audio-visual things happening behind them, and sometimes with a band and sometimes without. They've just been on the road, just the pair of them, doing the kind of little arts centre version of it. But they did the big version at the Newcastle City Hall, and I was the guest on that.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know. I mean, Newcastle City Hall, that's one of the... You must have played that venue more than anything, really, I suppose, in the Lindisfarne days.
Yeah, I think the band...
It was a regular thing, wasn't it?
We did something like 120 Christmas shows there.
You have your own dressing room, I should imagine.
Oh, yes.
Well, of course, you'll be gracing the stage, as we've said before, Rod Clements, when you do your solo show with bass player at the Halifax Square Chapel, and that's coming up in November the 30th.
It is indeed,
yes, looking forward to that. We will no doubt mention it on the diary of the correct date for that.
Oh, we will do.
Yes, but it's been a delight to talk to you anyway, Rod. It's lovely to have you on the programme.
Likewise, thank you both.
I believe you will have a website for which you can direct people, so they'll know when this record's finally out and what dates you're doing.
Yes, it's quite simple. It's rodclements.com, and there's a Facebook as well, Rod Clements Music, so just keep an eye on that and see what's going on, and I'll keep everybody posted.
Lovely. Well, it's been a delight to have you on, Rod. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.